theyeshiva.net.
So there's a beautiful word from the Heilige Satmirov, Schus Yagan Aleinu, Ba'al Kol Yisrael, whose Yarchei was also just last week, Chavavov. The Rabbi YY says that it says in Parshas Eikev that we read 2 Shabbosim ago about Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Asher Einei Hashem Elokecha Bo Mereishis Hashana Vad Acheris Shana. So the Mefarshim say that al pi diktuk, there's something amiss, there's something off. Either you say Mereishis Hashana Vad Acheris Hashana, or you say Mereishis Shana Vad Acheris Shana. For example, in English, you could say Hashem's eyes are focused on Eretz Yisrael from the beginning of a year till the end of a year. That makes sense. Mereishis Shana Vad Acheris Shana. Or you could say Hashem's eyes are focused on Eretz Yisrael from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. It's also good. Mereishis Hashana Vad Acheris Hashana. But in this pasuk, it's Mereishis Hashana Vad Acheris Shana. So you remember Maseches Rosh Hashanah where the sugya about this in Maseches Rosh Hashanah? We shouldn't do any b'chinas now, sagst du. Shana Shirasha B'tchilasa, No, who had that daf? No, welche daf? Very good. Misasher is b'seifa. So, the Satmirov asked this question. What's the Alpi Diktuk? And he said as follows. He said, in the beginning of every year, beginning of a year, Rosh Hashanah, everybody's feeling is, this is going to be the year. So, Kim Tanaya Yar, Anaya Haskala, Mereishis Hashana. It's not just going to be a year. This is going to be Hashana. It's going to be the best year of my life. I'm going to make the most money I ever made, do the most sales, be the most courageous. So Sibyl will make a resolution. This is going to be Hashana. You remember the first day when you went to yeshiva, yeah, or cheder? The first day, right? Even though you suffered already 8 years. ADD, ADHD straight. Right? But that first day you had hope. This is going to be the year. Kach min hagir shel olam. Satmirov says, then the year passes. And you look at it and you say, another year bites the dust. Noch a Jahr derech gegangen. Noch a Jahr weggepatet. Noch a verhackte, verwundete Jahr. It started off as Reishis Hashana. It ends off as Acheris Shana. It's another year. So he says, the Torah is telling this to you, that you should be aware not to fall into that trap. It's not Tiferet Shloimeh. Tiferet Shloimeh, the Heilige Radomska says that Mincha Erev Rosh Hashanah we daven, and we daven Shmoneh Esrei. And one of the brachas is Barech Aleinu, Hashem Elokeinu, Es Hashana Hazois, Es Kol Minei Tvuas L'Tzoiva, V'Sein Brach Al Pnei Hadama, Varich Shnaseinu, Kashonim HaToivos Levrach. He says, wait. It's Erev Rosh Hashanah Mincha. You may be davening it by Lichtzende, yeah? Maybe even a minute before Shkia, yeah? Du bist a good chassidische Yid, at least some kreisen, it could be way, it's pretty dark outside. Was Baruch Haleini making Hashem's name, Baruch Ata Hashem, Baruch Hashanim, bless this year like the best year, really. How many more seconds are left of the year? 10 seconds, 40 seconds, maybe 20 minutes. And even if you daven an early mincha g'dayla, or mincha ktana on time, so a few hours, he says, yeah, that's the hashkafa von Yadus. The hashkafa von Yadus is, as in a paar minut, in a paar sekundes, kann man mechader sein ayar, kann man beiten ayar. So the Satmirov said, that's pshat we say in the Musaf of Shabbos, in Hu Elakaini, hein ga'alti eschem, acheris kivreishis. What is acheris kivreishis? As the acheris will sein as evidereishis. That the same geschmack, the same enthusiasm somebody has in the beginning, they should be able to have by Acharis also. So that's our theme today, Histoxes. The question is, how do you get from Acharis to Bereishis? Bereishis is Bereishis, it's a new beginning. But that the Acharis should be Bereishis, not to lose one's passion and enthusiasm. After a while, especially when life is, it's a good Hebrew word, shigra. Shigra, everything becomes, auf Yiddish sagt man, monoton. In English they call it monotonous. same challenges, same clients, same office, same cubicles. Been there, done it. And the truth is, you see today that people are often extremely bored. Somebody once said, I'm finding myself to be very bored, and I think that I'm the cause. Because that's really the shayrish of boredom. The shayrish of boredom is not other people. It's not even the speech you're at. Sometimes it's easy to blame this, that. The real shayrish of boredom is me. There's a Yid I knew, he passed away a few months ago, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Steinsaltz. So a Talmud of his wrote to me, he went over to Rabbi Din and he said that davening, I find davening to be very uninteresting. Like the same thing every day. It's so boring. It's long and boring. Like, why are you excited about it? So Rabbi Din told him that every day a person changes. Every day a person grows. Every day a person experiences different things in life. Different things are happening. So the text may be the same, but what the person sees in the text could be different every single day because you're in a different place every day. So the boy says, Rebbe, and what if I'm not? So he says, then it's not the davening that's boring, then you're the one who's boring. Was willst du von der davening? So you're a boring person. So become a little bit of a more interesting person. Dig a little deeper and find what's happening inside of you. The truth is, a real person can't be bored because you have 80 trillion cells. And you have 100 billion neurons. And in each one, a lot is going on. And that's all what we know of on a conscious level. On a subconscious level, it's ad ein sof. So when a person is bored, it's because I'm not in touch with myself. I'm distracted from myself. The more a person is intimate with their own pnimius, with their own inner core, there is always an infinite wellspring of mayim she'ein lehem sof. There's a meiredik word from the Maharal of Prague. It's also connected to this month, I'm saying on my own, because every Chodesh has a Mazel from the 12 Mazalas. So you have Tleh, Shoy, Tu'umim, Sartin, Aryeh, Psulim, Iznayim, Akraf, Keshes, Gdid, Li, Dogim. Which daf in Rosh Hashanah? Yud Aleph. Amid Aleph or Amid Beis? Amid Beis. And you know what Mazel Chima is? You know the Machlekas? Of which one? Okay. I'm just reminding you. Yeah, Dafir Aleph Amid Beis, that's where it gets Lebedik. So what's the Mazel of Elul? The Mazel of Elul, in Volozhin, in the yeshiva of Volozhin, under the Netziv, they didn't have Maseches. They didn't have all the Maseches. Or even if they had, they didn't have enough. It's not like today, Baruch Hashem, Sedor B'Shufi. So what did they do? You're learning a Tosfos, a Rashi, you need to look up another Masechta very often, right? So what do? So if you have a Masechta in the Shafa, you can go over. There's some yeshivas that even everybody has on their table a small shas. It's very geschmack. But if you don't have it, so in the Volozhin, they were kaveya that each one of the Bachrim should learn a Masechta Baal Peh, and he should know it backwards and forwards. And they gave him the name of that Masechta. So his name became, he's Masechta Zvachim, he's Masechta Menachos, he's Masechta Chulin. If somebody had a question, you knew, Ken's gain some Masechta Zvachim, Ken gain some Masechta Erev, and Ken's gain some Masechta Yeshana, Fregen HaKatsha. Terasa in the Kras al Shmoi, quite literally. So the Mazel of Elul is Psula. It's a very interesting Mazel. And it's not Stam a Mazel. It's an astronomical fact. There's a reason for the Mazalas. If you learned the Masechta Rosh Hashanah, the Sugyas, the Rishon, the Rambam Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh, that it was basically, the Rambam says it was made already in the times of Noach, that they noticed that the backdrop of the sun, in every month, you could see different constellations of stars which have a certain form, whether it's Tleh, which is the sheep, or Shoir, which is the ox, etc. So the Mazel of Elul is called Psula. That's the Mazel. Just like Av, you have Aryeh the lion, which is masculine, and Elul is Psula, and then you have Tishrei Maznai. What's the connection between Elul and Psula? The Gemara says in Masechta Megillah, Daf Yud Gimel, maybe that's going to be the next Masechta, it's also a short Masechta. The Gemara says, it's a very Paladik Gemara. It speaks there about Esther and Achashverosh. So the Gemara says, that the Pasuk says in Megillah, Vayehav hamelech es Esther mikol hanoshim, vatisachein v'chesed lefonov mikol hapsulos. So the Pasuk is a little strange. Achashverosh loved Esther more than all the noshim, all the women. I got it. It's clear. There were a lot of noshim that came, and he liked Esther more. Then the Pasuk adds, vatisachein v'chesed lefonov mikol hapsulos. She had more chen and chesed from all of the other young women, all the other girls. So first of all, what do you have to repeat? And second of all, in the beginning it says, Mikol HaNoshim. And then at the end, it's Vatisa chen v'chesed levonav Mikol HaPsulos. Omar Rav. So Rav. And Rav is from the Gedolei Chachmei HaTalmud, the transition generation from the Tanoim to the Amirayim, who lived in the 3rd century, in the 200s, after the Common Era, around 150, 200 years after Churban Bayesheni. The first time you heard when Rav lived, okay? Lish gefährlich, don't worry. So Omar Rav said, Pshat in the Pasuk. And Rav says, and I quote the Gemara, Bikeish litoim tam psula tom. Tam be'ila tom. The Pshat in the Pasuk is that there was something special about Esther. If Achashverosh wanted the time of a psila, he wanted somebody completely new, Kala Belel Chopasa, he found that in Esther. If he wanted to be Toyim Tam Be'ila, somebody's already been married for a long time, Tom, he could do that too. He can have that flavor too. That's Pshat in the Pasuk. Vayehav hamelech es Esther mikol hanoshim. She was like one of the noshim who's married, a be'ila, but he still loved her more than everybody. Vatisachein v'chesed lefonov, even mikol hapsulos. Das is the Gemara. Frag the Maharal from Prague. He has a sefer Or Chodosh. The Maharal has a sefer Or Chodosh on Megillas Esther. So he has a long shtickle on this. I just want to bring out one point that he says. What's the point of this Gemara? What's the Gemara telling us? Basically, the power of Esther. But what's the point here? What was this, a ness? Was this a miracle that Hashem made? Esther was already married. First of all, she was married to Mordechai. She was together with Achashverosh. So you say Hashem made a ness? What a ness to make? So I'll be pshat, you're going to say, it was part of the way that Achashverosh is really going to choose Esther over everybody else. Still a strange thing, even if it happened that way. The Megillah says it, and the Gemara explains it, and Rav wants we should know it. You might say it brings out the taivas of Achashverosh. He was a real bal taiva. Sometimes he wanted this, sometimes he wanted that. But that's already clear from the ganze Suga, from the Gemara and Bechlal, from Megillah Esther. I guess this is just another icing on the cake about Achashverosh. So yet the fantasia was said gehat, how the Eberste gedaf mamalus and in Esther. Perhaps. The Maharal says, he says a line, a very powerful line, and I quote, Kasha hayaroitze litim tam psula hayaloi Esther ki ilu loi ba'ala Achashverosh. Ki loi hayala Achashverosh chibur imo. Achashverosh, in Yiddish you would say, kemol inish gehat arois. He never really became one and fully connected with her. There was always a part of her that he didn't know. A part of her that was mysterious. So every time it's like the first time I met you. The And really, as he explains, Esther really belonged to Mordechai. And Esther I'm adding. So there was a mystery there. Like, who is this girl? Who is this Esther? As much as he was married to her, and she was the queen, she was the first lady, but there was an element that he wasn't typhus. He didn't have a real kinyan. The Shem Shmuel quotes him out. He says, "Et nishka hat lahoyloi kinyan." He didn't have a real kinyan. When there's a mystery, I don't get you. There's a part of you that eludes me. So whenever I have a connection, there's always psachidish. There's always something novel because I'm still feeling I'm scratching the surface. There's always more and more and more. Once I have you, I put you in the lid. Okay, I got you. Now, first of all, and I'm saying this in parentheses, this is excellent marriage advice. That's the first thing. The reason it's excellent marriage advice is because one of the greatest challenges in a lot of marriages is husbands think they know their wives. Sure. If you're married, you know better. And the longer you're married, the better you know. And sometimes wives think they know their husbands, which is sometimes more true. But what often happens is, once I know everything about you, I think I know everything about you, you think you know everything about me, the relationship is done. I have you in a box, I put a cover over the box, and we could move on. The power of a good marriage versus not a good marriage is, in a good marriage, there's mystery. I know that I don't know, and I'm curious. I'm inquisitive. Instead of knowing everything your wife was thinking, which is a normal temptation, she said something, you already know what she was thinking, you know why she did it, you know why she said it, you already get upset. You already have a whole thing of emotions. Why don't you ask? What should I ask? I know this person for 29 years. What should I ask? What should I ask? You know this person 29 years based on your own trauma. Do you know this person? Or you know that I'm looking for my glasses, or my glasses, you look a certain way. But maybe I can open myself up to different possibilities. In a good marriage, you don't reach conclusions. You ask questions. Atas sakran. Auf Yiddish ruft man es Neugierigkeit. Ihr wisst, was Neugierigkeit is? Huh? Sakranut, inquisitive, interested. You don't make statements, you ask questions. I was once at a marriage workshop with a big therapist, so he finished, he said, I want to give a bracha to everybody, that when you're 97 years old and she's 96 years old, and you're in Palm Beach, Florida by the ocean, on a hammock, you should look at her and say, it would be so nice if I can get to know you. With Esther, you could feel this. Esther, Miloshin, Hester. Aster. There's something you don't know. It's off limits. Eina Magedes is Amaves Mailadata. But every person is Eina Magedes Amaves Mailadata. Every person has secrets they don't tell you, and they themselves may not know. Every person has layers and layers and layers, and a good relationship that stays open. I never close you in. There's always more to talk, more to explore. Now you're looking at me and you're like, really? Well, I know this person. And I'm saying if you really know this person, you really don't know this person. It's impossible. You know Hashem? If you don't know Hashem, how could you know a person? Chaviv Adam shenivre b'tzelem, a Jew also an andros, b'tzelem alakim. You really, the hostara is the ganze tzelem alakim. There's an ein sof for you, there's infinity in a person. I don't know myself, you think you know me. Your wife doesn't know herself, you think you know her. You don't know yourself, you think I know you. Comes the Shem Shmuel, and based on this Maharal, he says a gewaldige Wort. He says, "It's Torah tzivalanu Moshe, Meirasha kehilas Yaakov." Meirasha, says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, al tikra Meirasha ella meurasa. The Torah is meuras tzayidin. Torah is the Kallah, and the Jew is the Chassan, and that's pshat meurasa kehilas Yaakov. She's betrothed. She is mekudeshes. Asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvoisav. It's an union of kiddushin. Asher kiddushin b'mitzvosav. It's not just he sanctified us; he was mekadesh us. So Torah, on one hand, the Jewish people are sometimes called Hashem's Kallah, or Torah is called the Kallah, and the Jewish people are the Chassan. There's two ways of learning Torah. Ratza litem batam beula tam. Ratza litem batam psula tam. There's a person who learns, but kevayachal it's a b'chinas beula. I already know, I already have experience, I open up a Gemara, I already know how to read it, and you just go right back into the same box, to the same orbit, or in the lashon of Maseches Rosh Hashanah, to the same galgal. The zelbe galgal that's makif, the same orbit. He says the chiddush of Achashverosh was that with Esther he felt the first time he couldn't be kind to her fully. So what's pshat Torah tzivilanu Moshe me'rasha mu'rasa? That a Jew needs to know ein lo kinyan ba. There's something I still was not koine, and therefore I know how to learn new things. The Baal Shem Tov once said, it says, Teiras Hashem tmima meshivas nafesh. What's pshat tmima? Teiras Hashem tmima. What's tmima? So most people say tmima means complete, gans, tamim tiyah. This week's parsha, tamim tiyah Hashem alekach. The Baal Shem Tov says, tamim Teiras Hashem tmima, k'misha lo noga ba odom me'olam. It's like nobody touched it. Imagine you have a birthday cake. Somebody brings in a birthday cake, and for 3,000 years, Jews are nibbling off the birthday cake. How much of the birthday cake would be left by the time you get it? And stale. Not much, right? Says the Baal Shem Tov Torah, they're learning it for 3,300 years. It's tmima. Untouched. Not tmima, it's perfect. Tmima, it's untouched. Paraduma, untouched. It's complete. The cake is complete. What do you mean? What do you mean untouched? Yeah, doiris, hundreds of doiris of Yidden, including Tanoim and Amirayim, and Rabbanon Svarai, and Ga'onim, and Rishonim, and Achrayim, and Achrayim, Ga'onim Adar. They didn't only touch it. They delved into it, they lived it, they breathed it, they dedicated their life to it. What do you mean, like Toiris Hashem Tmim? It's untouched. Pshat is, there's a difference between something that's gvul and bli gvul, finite and infinite. Somebody has $1 billion in the bank, the cut of mamash, just get enough, sales. Okay, we'll settle for 10 million. Is very good for a start. You have $10 million in the bank, or even $1 million in the bank. It's a nice number, but it's finite. And if somebody takes away $100, it's not a lot, but it's noticeable, because 1 million is made up of many ones. So if you take off 1 from 1 million, it's not significant, but it's not 1 million. And if you take off 2, it's even less. And if you take off 3, it's even less. And if you take off 500,000, it's already very noticeable because you cut 50%. But the fact that if you cut 500,000, it's noticeable is because even if you take away $1, it's noticeable. Because 1 million is made up of ones. What if you have theoretically infinite amount of money? I know it's not practical, but theoretically, bli gvul. Then you could take 1, you could take 1,000, you could take 1 million. Nobody will notice. Why? Because it's infinite. Legabe bli gvul, 1, 1,000, 1 million, 1 billion, and 1 trillion is bedoima. There's no difference. They're all equally distant from the destination. Just like 1 is distant, 1 million and 1 billion is equally distant because it's bli gvul. So it's untouchable. It's genimmen and genimmen and genimmen and genasht and genasht and genasht and genasht. It's not depletable. You can es nicht anheben zu ausledigen. Sagt der Baal Shem Tov, Teiras Hashem tmima. K'mi shaloi naga ba'adam me'aylam. Of course people ate it and touched it and lived with it, but they still didn't touch it. It's still complete. Because it's Ein Sof, it's bli gvul. Das is the Gemara sagt. There's a Mailin Be'ula. There's a Mailin experience. There's something special in having a relationship with somebody you know. You know what I mean? It's long, it's solid, it's stable. You can't compare a chassan and a kallah, the first day of the Sheva Brachas, to a couple that's been together for 50, 60 years. It's a different matzah. Wir sind durch the Leben zusammen, mit gehabt mit Kinder zusammen, they went through nisyonis together, they survived the shviger together. I don't mean your shviger or my shviger, that's Hadekasin, but a shviger. Yeah? Living life with somebody for years and years, it's a bond higher than seichel, even higher than midas. It's just a loyalty, Two people look each other in the eyes, mekenes. That's the mile of Be'ula. But the Histoxes, That's the koyach ha'asulam. That's the newness, the chiyus, the freshness. Like Tom ba'adam me'olam. Zog the Gemara, medav sich lernen. Reb Shemesh Shmuel said, medav sich lernen von Achashverosh, we medav lernen. Don't ever think you have a kinyan in Torah, because then you get stuck. You stop thinking. You're not creative anymore. Very often, people take a sefer. They can't see anything new. They follow the same mahalach that I had for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Same thing. Can you be Toyin Thompson? Mayazach. Ainly kinyan. And that's the emes. Because if it's Ein Soif, as much as you are matzliach, even if it's taka, that you work your brain, there's always much more. Especially within the Gavra itself, there's often much more. That's why the Pasuk says in Yeshaya, Ki yival bachur psula yivaluch banayich, u'mesois chosen al Kallah, yosis alayich elikoyich. Yeshayahu Perek Samach Beis, which made its way into L'chadoidi. What's this idea? His yiyud ha'geula is ki yival bachur psula yivaluch banayich. That your relationship with Hashem is always new. How can it be always new? I was trained in such a home. How can it be that way? That's Pshat in the Chadoid. Shlomo Al-Kovitz wrote, Yosis alayich elekoyach k'mesois chusen al Kallah. It's a special dance. If you think you have God, you don't have a relationship. It's almost like you think you know your wife. I don't know which one is more. We'll figure it out. Bini Yisayid Nitna B'Isha. Ein like kinyan ba. It's a humility. So da pa Mishnah Pirkei Avos. The one place where Elisha ben Avuya is quoted from all people. Perek Daled Mishnah Chav, the end of Perek Daled. Elisha ben Avuya Eimer. Haloimed Torah Yeled L'mohu Doima L'diyoi Ksuv al Nayir Chadash. Haloimed Torah Zokin L'mohu Doima L'diyoi Ksuv al Nayir Mochuk. Meaning, if I teach Torah to a child, it's like ink inscribed on fresh paper, new paper. If I teach Torah to an older person, a zaken, the ink is also being inscribed on the paper, but it's machuk. So already you used the paper 100 times and erased and erased and erased, which means the ink can't be so absorbed in the paper because there's so many layers. Right? Like when you build something in Yerushalayim, there's always the Boina Churvas Yerushalayim. It's a layer. There's so many layers. So they ask a Pashta Shayla. I understand Pirkei Avos, the Gemara says in Brachas Daf Lamed, Haroitza, if you want, if somebody man de boilam have a chesida, l'kayim milad de Avos. Pirkei Avos is milad de chasidusa. Derech eretz, musar, ben adam l'chaveira, hashkafa. So he's trying to say, Torah yelled to kavalda to learn Torah when you're a child, because you're like a fresh sponge. You take everything in. But why is he saying the opposite? Haloim Torah zok. Let's say you have an El Yid. He never learned. Came about tshuva. Rabbi Akiva started to learn when he's 40. Because Yidden today who start learning Torah when they're 60. I know a Yid who became about tshuva at the age of 77. I know at the age of 90 he's considered to become a Baal Tshuva. So he opens up a Pirkei Avos. And what's the Mishnah telling him? Don't even try. You know what I mean? Ha'oiz geklapta ha'ishayna, ha'hanach kaparis, ha'oiz gemekta shtikl papir. You're already an older person. What's the point of the Mishnah? Say the positive. It's so discouraging for a Jew who didn't learn Torah as a child. What do you need to say the negative? Befrat, what's the chiddush of the Mishnah? You need Pirkei Avos to tell me that when you're a child, you grasp things better. You remember, everybody remembers everything that happened with their children. You're going to see your children will remember everything you said to them at the age of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't remember what happened 2 hours ago. Your kid remembers what happened 20 years ago. You teach kids languages at a young age. They're so fertile. They're like wet sponges. They take it all right in. You teach somebody today something when you're older, yeah? He's already texting. It's impossible. Of course, you want your bacher to sit 17 hours straight, but you can't even sit 2.5 minutes. The Rav goes 8 minutes longer. If he speaks more than 8 minutes, everybody's at the Kiddush. But then you want your bacher. It's not fair. But we're not going to get into that parsha at the moment. What do you need the Mishnah for? I know when I'm a child and I learn something, ich bin frisch. I'll tell you a beautiful pshat in this Mishnah. I once heard from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said as follows: Haloi metoyre yeled and zaken is not about age; it's about attitude. You could be 70 years old, you could be 40 years old, you could be 30 years old, you could be 50 years old. You can learn Torah as a child. You can even be 90 and learn Torah as a child. And you can be a youngster and learn Torah as a zaken. It's an attitude. There's two ways of learning. One person comes in to learning, I'm not ready to hear something new. You're not going to surprise me. I have my way of thinking about things. I have my mahalach. Ich bin a zaken. Zeshe Kallah chachva. I'm already a chachva. You're not going to teach me anything new. It's going to go into a box that exists already. One of the worst compliments I can get after a shiur is, we're learning a psake dichte, and somebody says, yeah, it's mamash the word I heard last Shabbos by Shalosh Shabbos. I'm like, oh yeah. Either you didn't understand what I said, or I didn't convey what I said. Because I want to put it into a box. I have a filing cabinet. I hear something. Let me put it in. I already come with paradigms, with hanuchas. I already know the matzah. I know everything. That's Torah there, Torah zaken. The Mishnah says, don't learn like that. Haloi metoyre yeled. Always be like a child. I know nothing. Teach me. Teach me. Abaye, teach me. Rava, teach me. Moshe Rabbeinu, teach me. Rabbi Akiva, teach me. Rashi, teach me. Rambam, teach me. Teach me. Chayes gornish. When I feel it does for sichveis. I'm open. Wet sponge. I'm open to be remolded. I'm open to explore. I'm open to excavate because I'm dealing with infinity. And when you're dealing with infinity, Ein Sof Bli Gvul, the greatest enemy is to say, I know. I once asked a very big psychotherapist who's been doing it for 50 years, I said, when a patient comes in, is there a way of knowing you're going to be matzliach or you're not going to be matzliach? What do you have to wait 2 years and charge him $20,000? Maybe the first session there's a way to say, it's a bracha levatala. He told me something interesting. He said from his experience, a patient comes in, if he has his life figured out, this is not going to be successful. I ask him, why do you think this is going on? Because of this. Why? Everything is figured out. There's already an encyclopedia. He has an erech, an entry, and everything, a Wikipedia, on his wife, on his mother-in-law, on his shver, on himself, on his kids, and everybody in his life. He's figured out. He said, a person comes in, I start asking him questions. And he's like, I don't know. I'm not going to do it at a speech, but you get the point. I don't know. Oh, there's hope. There's hope. He didn't lock himself. He didn't climb up on a tree, and he's staying there. Het is nicht verspart in his box. There's an expression. It comes from Bali Musar. I think it's in Shevet Musar. Kol gay shoite. Gimel Yud Aleph. Every arrogant person is a shoite. It's based on Pirkei Avos. Why? Why is kol gay shoite? Gay miloshen gayus, gaiva, not the other word. It's a Hebrew word. Why? Why kol gay shoite? I can be a balgaiva and a chacham. The answer is it's a definition. If you're arrogant, it means you are a shoite. It's not a prediction that's going to happen. It means be'etzem am a shoite. The greatest enemy to wisdom is thinking as a chabas haros. The greatest hachana to wisdom is sakranut, openness, humility, bittul. That's why we say every day, v'nafshi ka'afur lakol tiyeh, psach libi b'seirasah. What's the connection? It's from Brachas Daf Yud Zayin. Elikainitza. What's the connection? It's a Hagdama. There's no psach, if there's no nafshi kafel akaltia, it can be psach libi b'sedesach. Zok ta chashverish, zok the Gemara. Batisa chein v'chesed lefon of mikol apsulas. There's tam psul, there's tam beula. There's tam psula. Yosis olayich elikoyich, kimsois chason al Kallah. Ki yival bocher psula, says Yeshaya Hanavi. That's the relationship. Ich hab nicht dem Ebersten Arois. Ich hab nicht Yiddishkeit Arois. That's why Elul is psula. That's Elul. What's Elul? Elul is Histoxes. Life, I know it already. Nach Rosh Hashanah, nach Yom Kippur, nach Hashanah. Leave me alone. Here we go again. The same chicken, the same kompot. Maybe we'll have sushi this year. There's Elber Shaifa, the same Musa, the same guilt. Here we go again. You're guilty, guilty, guilty. Who did the daf in Rosh Hashanah about Gehenim and Gan Eden, that exciting daf? Who did that? Gehenim Kallah v'heim einem Kallah. Karkafte de lamanach tvillin. You remember which daf? And Yudches. So lebedik and freilich. That daf in Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara asks a question. Hashem, Hashem. You remember? Why Hashem, Hashem, twice? And for the Gemara, kan koidim sheyechte, kan lachet sheyechte. One is before you sin, one is after you sin. Frag de Rosh, I don't understand. In Rosh Hashanah, why do you need midas harachamim before you sin? You give midas harachamim is rachman, compassion. I understand after sheyechte. Why do you need Hashem koidim sheyechte? Chagut yid. What do I have to have rachamim on you? Get the kasha. The Rosh fleckles. So you remember what the Rosh answers? Huh? Yichavrusa did the Rosh. Okay, gewaldig. Where's Yichavrusa? He's still learning the Rosh. Okay. So I'll tell you what the Rosh says. You can look it up afterwards. I'll trust you. The Rosh says, I don't know if Archibald brings it, could be. The Rosh says, because Hashem knows you're going to sin. Okay. But I'm going to tell you a vart from the Sar Beis HaZoyar. The Heilige Ziddichoy Rebbe. This is what I saw in one of his svarim. He says, real Chiddush vart. He says, Koidim Sheyechte, you really need Rachamim. Because you usually feel arrogant. The person that walks around, see, I've been holier than thou, we call it. Holier than thou. He says, you really need a rachamim. After yechte, you're vulnerable. You don't think you're a malach elakim. Kaidim sheyechte. Those are the people you got to be afraid of. Those are the people you got to be scared of. I walk around b'koyim eskufa. Ich trachte sich up to the boine shloilem in kashna. Yeah? Mishnayis and Gemara, Mishnah Bruder, the zweite kashna. I walk around, my ticket oilam haba is perfect with a checklist. I did everything right. I just don't have a relationship with God. I just don't have a relationship with truth. There's no infinity in my life. There's no surprises. There's no growth. That's the koyach of histoxes that comes from a person realizing Hashem, Torah tziva lanu Moshe Merash, it's always a state of psula. Ein lo kinyan ba. Torah is Hashem tmimah. I never touched it yet. There's always deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. But I have to be open to it. It's Ein Sof. How much am I open? People who are more alive, they're more open to their own infinity. They're more open to the infinity in the world. This is such an important idea that it's the reason why half of our life we spend sleeping. The Gemara in Pesachim makes a whole cheshbon that much of our life is spent sleeping. The Rambam says in Hilchos Deis, you're supposed to sleep 8 hours a night. I don't know how many of you get 8 hours. The Magen Avraham says in Erechaim Reish Lamed Ches that there's a pasuk. Shlomo Melech says in Kehelis, in Iyov, Yoshanti Oz Yonuachli. Oz is Aleph Zayin, 8. That's what the Magen Avraham says. That's the Makkah of the Rambam. You have to sleep for 8 hours. It's a remez in Iyov. Why did Hashem do this? 8 hours a day, and even if you can get away with 7 hours, Mahadrim and Mahadrim do 12 hours. There are those, especially as Bachrim, who do 18 hours a day. They want a Mamish be Mahadrim. Should be a Nuach Li Li'olam Vot. But why did Rebbeinu Shalom do this? It's a system that he created. You say, well, the body needs to replenish itself. Ich verstehe. But he could have made it without sleeping. Just like we inhale oxygen. We need to inhale oxygen every single moment to live. And we do it 24 hours a day. When you're awake, when you're asleep, when you're eating, when you're... a person, the process of replenishing the body through sleep, he could have done when we're awake. So no, we spend half a life, much of the day, a third of the day, la'erech, kol chad l'fum shura delay, sleep. Taka the Medrash says in Bereshis Rabbi Yudala that when you go at night in the Shamas, she gets a new spirit of life. The Gemara says in Brachos, Shinas Echet Meshishim B'Misa. I got it, but the whole system could have been different. But this is the Seder Hashem made by everybody. This one sleeps a little less, this one sleeps a little more, but a huge time of the day goes, and everyone, you all know, sometimes the day finishes, I wish I had another few hours. I wish I had, you gotta sleep. Shabbos, you gotta sleep. What's the secret behind the system? So it says in Sifrei Chassidus, one of the reasons is, beautiful, beautiful word. Without that, life would be a continuum. And the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted life should be new every single day. So 9/11. That's why it's not even a half an hour sleep. Half an hour sleep you do by my drasha. You put your head down your back. Right? That's not the real thing. You sleep. You sleep a significant amount of the night or of the day. Depends on the mass. And now you wake up, it's Hanai 11. Shulchan Aruch to the Lord, Shulchan Aruch have very chadosh. Hanai mensch. Chadoshim labkorim rabba munosecha. Why is that so important? Because so much of life is that I'm stuck in the past. I repeat the same stories, the same patterns. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, Anaya Tov, it's a new day. Anaya Mensch, Anaya Neshama, Anaya Gva Mechadr B'Tuvay, B'Chol Yom Tamid Maaseh Bereishis. The Yerushalmi in Masechta Pei, Apeladik Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi Masechta Pei, I think it's Perek Ches. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish once went to bathe in Chamei Tveria. Anybody ever went to Chamei Tveria? Here. Huh? You were in the hot springs of Tveria. It's quite an interesting place. Rashi says it was left over from the Mabel. It's natural hot springs. And they built it into a whole infrastructure, but already in the Zman Hashas. You see in Mishnayos, Chamei Tveria was a Metzias. And it has very medicinal, it has for refuah, for health. It's very, very conducive for helping people in terms of their physical health. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, who were the G'dolei Hador. Rabbi Yochanan was the editor of Talmud Yerushalmi, which was written 100 years before Talmud Bavli, according to them. And his brother-in-law was Rish Lakish. And they went to Chamei Tveria. And by the Chamei Tveria, as in every good Jewish institution, who stands in front of Chamei Tveria? A schnorrer. The best was a schnorrer is? The guy who has a Harvard PhD in fundraising. In Yiddish, it's called a schnorrer. And the guy asks Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish for tzedakah. Will tzedakah. So what do they say to him? They say to Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, they say, we're going in to bathe. When we come out, we'll give you tzedakah. It doesn't say no matter how long they were there. An hour, 6 hours, a day, 2 hours. It doesn't say. They came out. He was dead. The beggar was dead. Oy, how would you feel? Guy's asking you for a couple of dollars. He wants to buy a drink. Yeah. You say, ich gehe mikveh, ich gehe daf yoimi, ich gehe lernen, ich gehe whatever I'm doing, ich hab mein shir, whatever it is, ich come out, ich give the tzedakah. You come out, Hatzalah is there, not Hatzalah, Misaska. How would you feel? Anybody? You don't have to all answer at once, huh? Huh? Somebody once said about a Jew, he said if he doesn't feel guilty, he blames himself. How many years would you need therapy for such an event? Especially Ayid, by Shonim, Rachmonim, Gam Lechasadim. You walk in, I murdered a man, mamish, but you cannot be a dayan. I had a lot of money, I could have given him something. 6 hours later, he's dead. I didn't know that he was holding by such starvation or thirst. You know the story, there was once a woman who lived in Beverly Hills. She was worth $29 million. She comes out of her palace, and there's a homeless guy. He says, ma'am, please, a couple of dollars. I haven't eaten in 3 days. She looks at him and she says, wow, I'm so jealous. I wish I would have such willpower. Talk about narcissism. Talk about seeing things from your own perspective. What did Rish Lakish tell Rabbi Yochanan? He looks at Rabbi Yochanan and he says, we didn't have the schus to help him out during his lifetime. At least we should have the schus to help him out during his death. Let's take care of him. They went and they covered all the expenses for the levaya, for the tara, for the tachrichim, for the kvura, for the matzeva. When they do the tara, of course you remove the clothes in order to bury the guf. They remove the clothes, and inside, in his tash, they find a lot of golden coins. The man had a lot of money. In other words, he never had a chaylas. Either it was a sickness not to use money, which some people have, so he starved to death, or something else. But he had a lot of money. That's the story. What's the point of the story? I want you to think about it. If I saw this matzah, what would I say? I would say, I'm a killer, I'm a murderer. And for the next 20 years, I'm sitting at a therapist to try to make me feel better that I murdered this shnar. And what would have happened? I would have never found out the truth. Rish Lakish didn't feel bad. Where's the guilt? Why doesn't Rish Lakish tell to Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan, O-M-G, capital, with 9 emojis. O-M-G, look what we, not a word. The Gemara doesn't mention, I don't understand. But that's the whole point. It's the go'iness of the story. Of course, Rabbi Yochanan wasn't happy that he died, and Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish weren't happy that he died. I'm sure they felt horrible. The Gemara doesn't have to tell you how a Jew feels when somebody died. That's not the sugya. The Gemara is trying to tell you something else. They could have remained stuck there, li'olam v'ad. Rish Lakish turned to Rabbi Yochanan and said, what's the avodah right now? Ma Hashem Elokecha shoyel me'imach doirish me'imach yes. L'regoyim tivchanenu hamachadish b'tuv v'cham v'tam v'masa b'reishis. I may have made a horrible mistake. Horrible. Maybe. And maybe I'll have to do tshuva for the rest of my life. What's right now? What's our calling right now? What's my mission right now? A yid needs a kvura. You're right. Let's say I'm guilty. But a Jew has to be buried. We didn't have the schus to help him when he was alive. Let's help him now. And what happens when they do this? They suddenly realize they have no reason to be guilty. The guy didn't need the money. Imagine what it saved them from. Whoops. There go the notes. So darf man sein, Halloy mit teure Yeled, mit des Chatschus, on notes. It's fine. We're winding down. If they would have focused on the past, they would have never even realized the truth of the past. Because they focused on the present and on the future, they realized the truth of the past. Isn't this so true in people's lives? People get obsessed with what happened. That story repeats itself in their brain incessantly, non-stop, and they don't even know really what happened. But when you realize life is nicht tam tam beulis, dav zayin tam tam psula, or as the Navi Yeshaya says, ki yival bachur psula yivaluch beinoich kimisois chasen al Kallah. Every moment is fresh and new. There's a new histoxes in the Bria. There's a new flow. There's a pulsating vibrancy that flows through the cosmos right now. And if I'm living with yesterday, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, wake up, it's a new life, it's a new world. Shamayim chadasha v'eretz chadasha. Why are you stuck there? Wake up to the now. The Aslanim Evart, the Helik Aslanim, we say in the Agada, so he says like this, there's two philosophies in life. One philosophy is you're always focusing on Mitchila. It used to be Mitchila, Amol, the good old days. You ever heard that? The Gita alte Zeiten. Dein Tate gewenne Yeshiva. The good old days. Says the Slanim, that's Oivdei Avodah Zarah. That's how Avodah Zarah handles. It's always about what used to be. But Achshav, when you're living in Achshav, in the now, Karvani Hamakam Lavedosai. Now you know that you're in the space of Hashem. How do you know at every moment if you're in the space of Hashem or not? You have to look. If you're living with Mitchila or you're living with Achshav. If you're Karvani Hamakam Lavedosai, if you're in the space of the divine, if you're in the space of the Rebbeinu Shalom, in his space there's joy and confidence, and there's always the presence of now. What is the greatest moment in life? What is the greatest moment in life? What is the greatest place you will ever visit in your life? And who is the most important person you will ever meet in your life? There's the Avodah Zarah answer, and there's the godly answer. And the godly answer is the most important moment in life is now. And the most important and greatest space in life is the space where you're standing in now. I always want to go somewhere else. Asura Noveres, Amara Godlaza, Asura Mikan Liskarav Lashom, says Rashi. Show me the action. Ooh. You look for the action. The action in my life. This life da. Shalma Alecha, relax, take off your shoes. If you can't find Hashem right here, right now, you won't be able to find him anywhere else. And who's the most important person you'll ever meet? The person you're talking to right now. Because this is where the Bria is. This is where the Chius, Elokis, Hamechadesh, Betivoi, Bechol, Yom Tomet, Master Bereshis, this Havuzak, the Baal Shem Tov is Bechol, Rega, Verega, Mamash, based on the Medrash Tehillim, on the Pasuk, Loilam Hashem, Varcha, Mitzvah, Hashemayim. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they could have focused on the past. They would have lost not only the present, but also the past. By focusing on the present, they actually learned about the past. Sometimes people made mistakes. Who didn't make mistakes? People made mistakes in their marriages. People made mistakes with their children. Some people made big mistakes with their children. Some of your parents made mistakes with you. That's why you came out so good. Because you had this complex that you had to compensate for. And every day you drive yourself to success. I'll prove my father. I don't mean you. You understand the concept. Right? Like if you would have had a good education, you wouldn't be so successful. You would have a job as a 9 to 5 and this, because you would know English, you would know this, you would know that. Now, Baruch Hashem, you're making a lot of money. Thank God. All you need is a little chutzpah. You have to get used to my humor. Don't take it so seriously. It's fine. But people make mistakes. That's how it is. People make mistakes with their children. People make mistakes with themselves. People make mistakes with their marriage. And even you're a younger chavre, but you also made some mistakes. Because the mistakes that people make on us, we usually make on other people too. That's how the cycle goes. But there's a choice in life. The choice in life is, I focus on my mistakes, or, as the Medrash Rabbah says, Ein va'ata ela loshen tshuva. When it says the word va'ata, it means tshuva. Va'ata yisrael ma'ashem alakecha shalom ha'imach is tshuva. Va'ata pen yishlach adam, he's going to take from the Eitz HaChaim, is tshuva. What's the connection? The yisoid of tshuva is the one word, ata with an ayin, now. I can live in the past, or I can live in va'ata. Ein va'ata. So you can say, no, tshuva is all about the past. No. Tshuva is about moving on from the past. He's up there, tshuva. Shinui Hashem, I'm not the same person anymore. I am the same person. I'm not the same person. Person is infinite. I went into a deeper place. Tshuva is the glorious belief that even if I made mistakes, and even if I made terrible mistakes, and even if those mistakes affected other people, I'm never a victim to my circumstances. I always have the koyach haitzchachus, the ability to recreate my life, the ability to recreate my circumstances, the ability to mend many of my mistakes, and the belief and the understanding that there's no such a thing. A person is be'etzem stuck in a story, in a trauma, in an old pattern of thinking. You can create new neural pathways in your brain. Today we know in neuroplasticity, chachmas refuah, that you literally can create new neural pathways, new highways in your brain, new ways to think. How? By thinking in new ways, and by doing things in new ways, and by reacting in new ways. And by main thing is, that's what tshuva is, noticing where I'm getting stuck. So the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted that every single day, when I wake up in the morning, I should be able to say, Sa'anaya Tog, Sa'anaya Leben. What are yesterday? Oh, it's been 8 hours ago, 7 hours ago, 6 hours ago. Every day is a new life. What do you mean? I have the same job. I have the same wife, Baruch Hashem. I have the same children, Baruch Hashem. You really want to exchange them every day? That's the Ma'ila of Ba'ula. Consistency, discipline. Because consistency is the soil upon which creativity blossoms. The most creative people are successful only when they're consistent. Sometimes artists think that they're creative, so they don't need a schedule. 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, they're not successful. The most successful artists are the people who have a schedule. They wake up, they go to sleep, they put in a full day, a full night, but they have a schedule. Because consistency, in Hebrew it's called ikviyut. Wie sagt man ikviyut auf Yiddish? Consistency, yeah?
Routine.
Huh? Routine. Auf Yiddish. Auf Englisch weiß ich. Huh? Regelmäßig. That's good. Oh, eine Ket? Regelmäßigkeit. Consistent. You must have that. You know it in your own work. Avada, you need Mazel. He was once a great golfer. And he did very, very well. And they asked him, why do you do so much better than all your colleagues? He says, it's luck. It's luck. But the funny thing is, the more I practice, the more luck I have. And it's so true in business. You all know, consistency is critical in life. But consistency should never be a trap. The trap of boredom, of monotony, of rote. Life is so full of surprises. It's so full of opportunity. It's so full of energy. It's so full of newness. It's so full of vitality. It's so full of infinity. How can I be stuck in a little rut? Open yourself up. Gal einai va'abita nefloyes miteresach. David HaMelech was the Rosh HaSanhedrin. Et als gewusst. But he remained a yelad. Gal einai, open up my eyes. Va'abita nefloyes miteresach. So I'll be able to see. I'll be able to see the nefloyes. Every day I wake up. Hanayatog. A beri chadasha. A new event. I'm going to conclude with this. Who learned Daf Chav Gimel? You. Oh. Devad HaMesader Alein. Devad HaMesader Alein. Okay. So we're going to finish with a little astronomy. But don't shut down on me. Because those of you who are learning astronomy during Maseches Rosh Hashanah, so you'll appreciate it. And those who didn't, you'll understand it. The Mishnah Rosh Hashanah Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis speaks about how they investigated the witnesses who said there's a new moon. How they did the investigations. They had to ask all these types of questions to make sure that it's emes, so they could be mekadosh the chodesh. They could say it's Rosh Chodesh. One of the questions the Mishnah and the Gemara explains is which way the moon was facing. What's pshat? Which way the moon was facing? The moon in the beginning of the month, of course, is not a ball. It's what we call a crescent, like a little sliver, right? Like you have a little shura. A banana, okay. A banana, yeah. Boire priya adama. Just don't make a bracha on it. But yeah, a banana. That's the moon. So the question, so you have the two sides of the moon, it's called in English a concave. A concave it's called. So you have the two karnayim, the 2 points, the 2 horns of the moon, like the 2 edges of the banana. Was it facing the sun? Or is it not facing the sun? You see the moon, the sun sets, you see the moon is the 2 karnayim, the 2 points facing the sun, or it's the opposite side. It's facing the opposite direction of the sun. So the Gemara, if they say that it's facing the sun, you know that they are lying. Favos. Du gedenkst? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Why? Say it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Mei oilam loira sochama b'gimaso shalavana. The sun never saw the blemish of the moon. It's impossible. If the 2 points of the banana are facing the sun, so what's that whole piece inside? It's dark. Because remember, only that little crescent is light. The Chama never saw the dark side of the moon, ever. This means that the Levana's points are facing in the other direction. So the crescent that's shining, that the Chama sees. But the other side, if it would be facing the other side, it means the Chama sees the dark side of the moon. Rabbi Yochanan said, the sun never saw the dark side of the moon. Ever. The sun only sees, meaning the sun only faces the light side of the moon. How does Rabbi Yochanan know this? I'm asking you, why did the sun never see the dark side of the moon? He had a Kabbalah, it's reflecting the sun. Beautiful! Because if the sun looks at the moon, there's no dark side. The whole light of the moon is a reflection of the sun's light. Zayagit. So if I'm the sun and I'm looking at the Levana, the part that I'm facing can't be dark. How can it be dark? If I'm looking at it, it's not dark anymore. And if it's dark, it means it's not facing the sun. That's the problem. The problem is the Levana is a ball, half faces the sun, half doesn't face the sun. So when it's a crescent, the sun is reflected in a little tiny sliver of the Levana, and the other part, the dark part, is facing away, and therefore it doesn't reflect the sun. But Rabbi Yochanan says it the sun never saw the dark side of the moon. Yeah, no kidding. If the sun sees it, it's not dark. Hat der Behelike Baal Shem Tov gesagt. Rabbi Yochanan is not just talking about the sun and the moon. Rabbi Yochanan is talking about every sun and every moon. The sun is the mashpia, and the moon is the makabel. And he says, it's true about every teacher and every student, every parent and every child, every husband and every wife. Every relationship where there's a giver and there's a receiver. A real mashpia, a real son, a real rebbe, a real father, a real mentor never sees the dark side of the moon. I don't see it. You know why I don't see it? Because when I look at you, I'm busy giving you so much light that I can't see the darkness anymore. In other words, there's 2 ways of how to relate to people. One is you look at a person who you love and you see the darkness. You see the begimah, the blemish, how pogum they are, how tzamazik, how tzahak, verwundet, wounded. traumatized, sick, dark, finster. That's what I see. You may be a good guy, aber du bist kein Chama. Kein Zun bist du nicht. Kein Zin bist du nicht. A Chama bist du nicht. A real Chama, the moment I'm looking at you, you know what I see? I see your light. And I see your ability to reflect light. It doesn't mean that the sun is naive. The sun is not dumb. The sun is not stupid. Oh, the sun, he's such a shaita. He doesn't see that the moon is dark. No! He knows when I'm here, the moon is not dark. Because I give him so much light and I reveal in him all of his light. That's what Rabbi YY is teaching. And if a witness doesn't understand this, he can't say kazerei v'kadosh if you don't understand this. If I'm busy telling you how bad you are and how messed up you are and how dark you are, get another son. Get another chama. This is not the right chama. Not because the chama is stupid and dumb. Chama knows everything that everybody else knows. When the chama is present, suddenly the levana comes to life. The levana is shining. The levana is alive. This is the koyachais chachos kozere eve kaddish chodesh miloshen chiddush. The whole much of Rosh Hashanah is about chotshim. Chodesh miloshen chiddush. The sun is stable, consistent. The sun is the b'china of pe'ula. The moon is the b'china of psula. That's why it says in Kabbalah that chodesh is called yichud shimshu v'siyara. It's the unity between the masculine and the feminine. Shemesh Yereach is Zachar, Levana is Nekeva. That's the B'china of David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. You remember when Rabbi sent Reb Chia to be Mekadosh the Chodesh in Ein Tav? That's your daf? Yeah. You remember which daf? Daf Chafei. What's the simon that he told him? David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. Why that the simon? So Shari Ephraim brings from his Rebbe because David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim is Begematria Rosh Chodesh. So ich gewisst? Al Pipnimi is, David is Levana. David is Malchus. Femininity, Malchus. So Chama and Levana, Yichud Shimsha V'Siyara, is the Chassan and the Kallah. Shemesh is Tmidim Kesidra. It's consistent, B'chin of Be'ula. Levana is Musafim Kil Chassan. It disappears. It's gone. 2 days you don't see the Levana. It's in a depression. So you would think the Levana is gone. It makes a comeback. Every month. Anaya Chiddush. A new comeback. It's Chachos, Psula. That's the Koyach Levana. The Chama brings this out in the Levana. I never see you as hopeless. I never see you as dark. What I see is an opportunity for me to give you more light. Whenever you meet somebody in life, you have a choice. I could look at the person and see their darkness. But if you want to be a real son, you don't see the darkness. You see an opportunity to give light, to be an ambassador of light and of love and of hope, so that you have the hischachus of Elul, Mereishis Hashanah, even at Acheris Shana, Hein Ga'alti Eschem Acheris Kivreishis, Liyos Lochem Le'Loikim, B'mheira B'yameinu, Amen, when it's going to be V'hoya Oir HaLevana, Ka'or HaChama, Ka'or Shivas Hayamim K'may Shahoysa, Koide Miyuta, Ubikshu Hashem Melekayim Ve'ez David Malkam, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim, as Rabbi Yirmiyah just learned in Rosh Hashanah Daf Chafei, B'karev B'yameinu Amen. Thank you, und agit geben Shyor, aksive v'aksive toive, und hatzlache Rabben Alts, mit Histoxes.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.